Handbrakes are often overlooked and thrown on the back burner when it comes to a sim racing setup. And I mean, yeah, if you're only driving cars that don't utilize handbrakes like GT4, GT3, Formula cars, prototype cars, then yeah, I get it. You don't need a handbrake. But if you ever have the itch to do some skids, whether it be with some form of street car or a pro drift car, or even on a rally or any sort of dirt course, you need a handbrake. And I think this Simagic TB1 is the best handbrake on the market. Now, let me explain. I'm not saying this is the best of the best handbrake, but for the money and what you get from this handbrake, it surely is on the top of a lot of people's bucket list. And unless you're a pro drifter or a pro esports drifter, this will work for you perfectly fine. Now, I can go on eBay or Amazon and buy an e-brake for $50. But as I say quite often, the sim racing space is definitely a pay for what you get sort of mentality. These cheap spring plastic e-brakes you get from Amazon or eBay work, but that's about it. Commonly, when you pull on these handbrakes, it's like a light switch. It's either on or off. And when you're drifting or rally racing or anything that utilizes a handbrake, you need the handbrake to be more like a dimmer switch, where you can be precise with how much pull you want in your handbrake. Just like with the dimmer switch, you can be precise with how much light you want in a room. Maybe you want a little handbrake pull to make a small correction. Maybe you want to pump the handbrake to initiate into a corner instead of pulling it and making your tires into a cube. Or maybe you do want a fat flat spot on your tires and you just want a fat yank on the e-brake. In a real drift car or any sort of car that utilizes a hydraulic handbrake or anything similar, whether it's with a dual caliper setup or it is an inline hydraulic handbrake, you're able to modulate. And the Simagic TB1 allows you to do that. The Simagic TB1 is made entirely out of aluminum and is engineered for realism and reliability. So let's take the next few minutes and take a deep dive into what this really is. I'll let you guys take a quick look at it, a look around, look at the bottom, look at the handle as well. There's a ton of modularity within this handbrake. The first thing I want to talk about is the mounting points. So if you could see at the bottom here, right, there are 4 different holes that you could screw into if you want to take your screws underneath the handbrake. Say you have like a handbrake plate or something similar on your rig, this is the perfect solution for that. And then we also have 6 holes, 3 on the top, 3 on the bottom. The ones on the outside are a lot bigger than the one in the middle. So you can mount your handbrake again on plates, or what I like to do is mounting it on extrusion metal. So for example, like a track racer or an advanced sim racing chassis, have an upright metal piece where you can mount either a shifter or in my case, a handbrake. And what I like to do is I like to use the 2 middle screws, and it fits perfectly fine, aligns fantastically. And it's modular where I can move it back and forth. Maybe you want it in a different position, or you want it further back, or you want to mount it upright like this because you don't have a lot of room. You're able to do that as well, because using these 4 bolts here, there are 2 bolts on each side, you're able to loosen these and move the handle down to have a pull-up style handbrake, which is fantastic. It feels more natural to some people, and you know, it's just preference at the end of the day. So with these 4 bolts, you're able to move the handle down so you can have a pull-up style handbrake. And because of the modularity and the mounting, if you want to mount it up like this, which honestly I don't recommend, which is mounting it on the upright, the same piece that goes onto your wheelbase, you're able to do that in the upright position. And have to be lower, obviously, you can do that. Or if you get a longer bracket piece for your side bit on your cockpit, you're able to move it further back and have a nice pull-up handbrake. Just to talk a little about the ergonomics of this handbrake, it's fantastic. The stock handle, I love it. You know, it's got holes in it to save weight. It's very lightweight. The grip is also fantastic. It's kind of like a felt, kind of like a BMX bike. If you've ever felt the handlebars of a BMX bike, like the felt bit, it's very similar to that. It's kind of soft if you really squeeze it. It's nice to the touch. I mean, it feels good. You wanted the option, you can unscrew it off and you can put something different. Maybe you want something that's metal, you want something a little longer, a little shorter, you're able to do that. I'll just show you the thread pattern real quick. This is what it looks like. This is the interior of the grip itself. So yeah, and that way it could be, you know, it could be customizable. I'll put a picture up on screen right now. You could even customize the handle. I've had people where they, you know, they'll drill into this part, this little bottom bracket bit. There's no electronics down there, so you're free to drill into it. I personally wouldn't recommend it, but if you want to, you can. And you can put a custom handle on here of any sort of handle that you'd want. You know, you like core works, you like chase base, you make your own handbrake handles, you're able to do that and still keep the mechanism of the TB1. And just to hop into that, I don't know if you can see this very well. I'll put a funny message on the screen if you can't. But what's so fantastic about this handbrake compared to its competitors or things in similar price ranges, which this handbrake goes for $169, nice, is that it is a load cell mechanism. So commonly on handbrakes, actually, hold on, I'm gonna get something real quick. So this is actually one of the TB1's competitors. This is the Moza handbrake, the only handbrake that Moza makes. As you can see, for comparison, the handle of the TB1 is a lot bigger. The TB1, in my opinion, looks a lot nicer. You know, this mechanism down here is a lot bigger. The metal's a lot nicer. And I do like the felt handle. I know some people prefer the aluminum. It's just, you know, when it gets cold, it's cold to the touch, right? So as you can see with this, I guess the best angle I can show is here. What this handbrake does is it is a spring mechanism, right? If you see that yellow spring there, what this means is when you pull it, right, it only activates a spring. Commonly with an actual handbrake in real life, specifically a hydraulic handbrake, there's different pressure points when you pull the handbrake, right? Here, it's all consistent no matter how far back I pull it. Now, if we pull up the TB1, right, when I pull back, it gets harder and harder to pull the farther I go, which is, again, very similar to how a hydraulic system works. You also need a bit more pressure with this, with a load cell mechanism. So what I mean by that is with this, no matter what force you have, it's very minimal, right? It's just whatever this spring is measured at. It might be, you know, 10, 15 kilograms, right? And you just pull it back and it does the same, right? Now with a load cell, you can have different maximum amounts of forces that it can measure, right? So if I put a little force on it, see, it's not really gonna pull that much at all, actually. Where if I pull a little here, again, it pulls back. You don't need a lot of force. The TB1 with the load cell mechanism, it's up to 100 kilograms of force, which is similar to like a foot brake pedal that you could get from these sim racing companies. To put some beef into the handbrake. And you know, if you drift in real life, if you do rally in real life, when you're going around corners, you're yanking that handbrake, right? It's not just a little light pull, if you will. Comparatively to these two, they're, you know, competitors. This one goes for $999, while the TB1 goes for $169. So that $70 difference to some might be a make or break deal. However, if you're drifting, if you want to take this somewhat seriously, that extra 70 bucks is gonna get you a lot better of experience. And I've used both of these for quite some time. I've used the Moza handbrake. I used this for well over a year, and I've used this for over 3 months. And just out of context, just from that 3 months, this is way better. And it being only $70 more and having more modularity in terms of mounting. As you can see, the Moza handbrake, it has 2 bolts at the bottom. I wanna say, no, it's just 1 at the bottom right here. And then you have 3 holes that are all the same size at the ends. And again, just to remind you, there's 4 holes in the bottom of the TB1 and then 3 on each end. And the 3 on the end, there's more space, so you could swivel it, do that sort of thing. If you wanna have it, you know, you mount it at an angle any which way. So yeah, a lot more modularity in the TB1 compared to the Moza handbrake, and relatively the same price. I mean, 70 bucks isn't a huge difference, especially in terms of sim racing hardware. If there's anything I could really critique about the TB1, there's not much. I mean, this is a really solid product. There's not much I have to say. I mean, the only thing I can maybe see changing is maybe changing the handle to be a little lighter, but that's like super minimal, to be honest. It feels fine, but I've had some people say it feels kind of weird. Maybe changing this to something different. But again, that's from people's feedback. For me, it's pretty solid. I mean, I have nothing much to say in terms of bad things with this handbrake. I will say sometimes there is a connection issue USB wise that usually just has to do with the cord. When it comes to plugging this handbrake in, it's just a USB-C cord in the back. So if you have a bad cord, if you're having bad connection issues, you could just order a USB to USB-C cord and use that as an alternative. But personally, I haven't had any problems with the connection stuff. I just want to bring that up because it is a high point of contention with the Simagic hardware. So yeah, that about does it for my review of the Simagic TB1. I mean, I've loved this handbrake. It's been super fantastic. If you're interested in learning more about the technical specs and really getting into the nitty gritty, click the first link down below. It takes us to our website where you can read all the technical specs about the TB1 and even purchase one for yourself. And if you use code 404, you can save yourself 5% off anything on boundlessracing.com at checkout. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.